welcome back to Haven of Horror. I'm Subject 879 doing another solo video, and I thought it might be interesting since it's the end of 2021 to do a top 5 best and top 5 worst horror films of the year that I personally saw. I've made both lists on Letterboxd. You can check me out there. My name is the same Subject 879. So we're going to go ahead and get started with number 5 on my worst list, which unfortunately is Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. I had quite a lot of anticipation for this movie. The trailers looked a little rough, but I don't take trailers as a measure of quality personally, because I've seen some pretty good movies that just had bad trailers. I'm a big fan of the Resident Evil video game franchise. I like even some of the bad ones like 5. So I've been waiting to see them do an adaptation properly after the nonsense of the Anderson films. However, this was not it, unfortunately. There's some questionable changes to the source material that I think harms characters. My personal favorite character, Leon Kennedy, is just a bumbling idiot in this movie, which really is unfortunate because he's a really cool character in the games. And they tried to squeeze too much into a movie that's not even 2 hours by combining the first 2 games. So neither plot or characters in either plot have room to breathe. However, I do want to give it props for some really cool set design that accurately recreates the areas from the first 2 games, like the RPD and the Spencer Mansion. And I really liked Kaya Scuderio. I probably butchered her name as Claire. If this does get a sequel and they go the Code Veronica route, that's what I would like to see. We'll probably do a full video on that movie at some point, so I'm going to keep these brief as there's a lot to go through. But overall, to me personally, Resident Evil Raccoon City was a big disappointment. However, there is potential there if they do get a sequel, but personally, I would rather see them reboot again in a few years, and hopefully not with Sony Pictures at the helm, because Sony doesn't have the best track record. It is what it is, All right, on to number 5 on my best of list is Psycho Gorman. Now, technically, this movie came out last year. However, it did not hit place until this year. It came out on Shudder in 2021, so I count it as a 2021 film. For anyone who does not know, this is a science fiction action horror comedy. That's a mouthful. About a couple of young siblings who discover an extraterrestrial overlord named Psycho Gorman. Basically, it's what if E.T. was a murdering bastard, and it's awesome. If you love horror, if you love comedy, if you love gore and just goofy movies like I do, I would highly recommend Psycho Gorman, as it is quite a bit of fun. We did review that on the channel, so I will put a little card up at the top that you should be able to click and see to check out the review there. Now, on to going back to my worst of list is Handyman, the 2021 pseudo reboot Halloween 2018 version of the Candyman franchise, which I did a review. It's not a great review, but it is what it is. I thought it was just very poorly written. The acting was fine. However, I think that the take just doesn't feel like the same Candyman to me. And there's really questionable choices to try to make it seem more intelligent and about current events than it actually is. And I've come to realize I don't like that actor that plays the new Candyman, unfortunately. For anyone who is not aware, the new Candyman movie is written by Jordan Peele. I've only seen 2 of his movies, Us and this one. I was not too enthusiastic about either one. So I'm beginning to think that Jordan Peele might be the problem, but feel free to let me know in the comments below what you thought of this movie. But yeah, overall, was not too happy with it. However, I do want to give a shout out. I remember to Nia DaCosta for having a really good sense of atmosphere and dread, even if I wasn't enjoying even if I wasn't enjoying the script, I could enjoy certain things in the directing. So that's always nice to see and to experience. Now, back to the best of list, I figured this would be the best way to do it, alternating back and forth. And we might make this a yearly thing. So any suggestions for improvements would be much appreciated. Number 4 is Last Night in Soho, another film that I do want to do a whole video on at some point. So I will keep it brief. However, I really enjoyed this movie. It is one of Edgar Wright's weakest movies, but I was told by a friend of mine that he wrote this as if he was writing a Stephen King adaptation, and it shows. And my personal favorite author is Stephen King. So I was really excited for this movie, and it, for me personally, lived up to the hype. The ending is a little weak, I think, but the character stuff in that is really good. The horror itself is not the best, but Edgar Wright really gets the character stuff down, which to me is the most important part of a horror movie, because I can't be scared or upset if something happens to a character I don't care about. Now, obviously, I wish the horror stuff was better. If that was better, I would say this was a contender for best horror film of the year. Alas, that stuff drags it down, so it ends on the number 4 spot on my list. All right, before we get to number 3 on my list, I have to admit I was questioning putting it on here because it is a direct to DVD thing, but I did watch it. It is a horror movie, and it is what it is, you know. My number 3 is Dawn of the Beast. It is one of those like crap things you find on Amazon Prime, directed by Bruce Wimble. It's you can guess what it is from the title. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it. Just don't. You know, just don't. For number 3 on my best of list, I'm just gonna do 2 and 3 together. 2 and 3 are Fear Streets Part 1 and 2. I really enjoyed these first 2 parts. Part 2 is very much a tribute to Friday the 13th and the old 70s and 80s slasher film, which is very much my thing. And you know, actually, the more I think about it, I have these backwards. Part 1, which is 1994, would be my number 3. It is very much a tribute to the 90s slasher Scream and things like it that are more meta and self-aware. Whereas Part 2, which is my number 2, is a throwback to Friday the 13th and things like that, like I mentioned. Overall, the first 2 parts of the trilogy really impressed me, and I really enjoyed them for what they were. Unfortunately, Part 3 disappointed me for the most part, so it did not make my best of list. But I would still recommend watching it if you watch the first 2, just so you can get that conclusion. Because not everything in 3 is bad, but it was a notable step down from the first 2, in my opinion. My number 2 on my worst of list is another one of those that I debated adding, but I did watch it. It is a horror film. It is Bingo Hell, directed by Gigi Saul Guerrero. Probably butchered that pronunciation as well. Richard Brake tries to do everything he can to save this movie, but it's just nonsense, and it's not the fun kind of nonsense. It's just, what is happening? I believe this is one of those like direct DVD Blumhouse films. I overall like Blumhouse, but stuff like this I tend to try to avoid, but sometimes you just can't avoid it when a friend makes you watch it, you know? Overall, I cannot recommend Bingo Hell unless you're just watching it with a bunch of friends, you know, getting wasted, all that good stuff. Now, for the moment that I'm sure anyone watching this video is waiting for, all 3 of you. Midnight Mass is my number 1. I know it is not technically a movie, however, it is a horror thing, and it's on Letterboxd, so I'm counting it. I won't go into spoilers, but Mike Flanagan, I think, is one of the best horror directors in Hollywood right now, and this is might be his finest work. I'm not too sure yet. I need to go through some of his other stuff, but this is the best adaptation of Stephen King that Stephen King never wrote. If you like horror that is critiquing religion, if you like Stephen King, or if you just like Mike Flanagan, do yourself a favor and watch this. Yes, it is an 8-hour miniseries, but it requires that runtime to fully tell the story, I think. Wonderful performances from everyone involved, wonderful direction, a wonderful script with maybe a few issues here and there, but I think this is so good that you're not even going to notice the issues. That's just me personally, though. Not to end on a dour note, but my worst movie of the of 20, Michael Chaves. I'm pretty sure that he's the one who directed like The Curse of La Llorona. I personally have no investment in the Conjuring shared universe. They're not my type of horror, but I figured I would watch this one since it came out on HBO Max. It was one of the first movies to do so, and I thought it was just boring. It's just taking from movies that are better than itself than it is nonsensical at times, considering it's trying to be, a true story. And maybe the first two are better. I do want to go back and try to give those a shot at some point, but who knows? Maybe those will be just as bad in my personal opinion, of course. Well, that is all I have for today. Those are my 5 best and 5 worst horror films of 2021. What did you guys think was the best and worst of 2021 when it comes to horror? Feel free to leave me a comment below. And